Welcome to the Beyond Fat Loss podcast, where we don't just stop at fat loss, you learn about all the good stuff that follows. How to build muscle, how to enjoy more food, and how to stay lean without going to extremes. We are your hosts, Katie and Sean, and today we're going to be answering some of the listener questions we've had submitted.
Excellent. Just what we need at the end of our fat loss phases when our brains have turned to mush.
And when we've had enough of living with each other for the past 10 weeks.
Well, let's hope these questions don't end up in a divorce.
Can't make any promises there, Mr. Dallo. But let's hope if you enjoy this Q&A style podcast, please drop us a like or share. And make sure you're following or are subscribed on whatever platform you're listening on to the podcast. You don't miss any future episodes.
And if you want to be able to submit some sneaky questions for next time, as well as see how we transition out of fat loss and get back on the muscle building bandwagon for the foreseeable future, drop us a follow on our socials. On Instagram, we're both at KTSKD Coaching or at Sean SKD Coaching. Just a small plug for me. I've got a new account and I could really do with some support and following right now. Because at the moment, I look like Billy No Mates. So please come along and drop me a follow. Sounds quite desperate, that, doesn't it?
I've kicked him off our joint page and I'm the one that's got off lightly there with our loyal, committed fan base already. And Mr. Dallo there has kindly taken one from the team, started a new page so we can share our journeys in a little bit more depth. But yeah, go drop him a follow. You won't regret it.
My page is small, but it's mighty. And there'll be plenty of helpful tips for you to pick up on the way about how to get the best physique results you can in the time that you have available. One thing I'm very big on is about understanding that there's many different ways to do things and there's many different ways to get great results from losing fat and building muscle, but it's about identifying what is right for you in the right circumstances at the right time. And through my content that you'll find on social media, you'll see a little bit more about how I frame that and about how to make the right decisions for you. Because at the end of the day, there's only so many different ways you can lose fat. There's only so many different ways you can build muscle. A lot of them work, but it's about taking it into the right context.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you do a fantastic job at explaining the nuance behind that, Sean.
Well, thank you very much.
So then, we've also got a holiday coming up in September. So if you follow us now, you'll also get some behind the scenes content about how we manage our holidays as transformation coaches without losing all of the hard work we've put into our fat loss phases.
That holiday pizza is calling my name, Katie.
Before Sean starts drooling on himself, let's get down to business. And what a question we have to kick us off. I did laugh when this one came in. Who's the grumpiest in an aggressive diet or on the fewest calories?
Oh boy, we're starting with the divorce question straight away, aren't we?
I just looked at Sean and I could see it. I had the eyes like, oh
Right,
yeah.
tread very carefully with how you answer this one, Sean boy. Very carefully. All right, so let me just start by saying I'm always grumpy. When I'm dieting, it just gets a little bit worse. My tolerance levels are pretty low. Patience isn't something I'm blessed with a lot of. So when I'm dieting, it's probably a little bit worse. Imagine those old sort of Looney Tunes cartoons or like the Tom and Jerry cartoons where you've got like a bomb and you've got like a little bit of string at the top of the bomb, the fuse. And the fuse is really short and they light it and they got no time to get out of the way. That's basically me in an aggressive diet or doing fat loss. I don't have a lot of tolerance. I have a pretty short fuse, but I am hyper aware of that. So I do my best to try and diffuse the situation as much as I can. There are many occasions where I will turn around and leave the room and not say a lot after leaving the room. And that's a very good sign that my short fuse is very close to being lit. But I do find that a little bit more challenging. But would that make me the grumpiest, or is that just an extension of my normal being in life? Who knows?
I feel like you've done a great job at explaining that, Sean, and I might not put my foot in it anymore. I think you've covered your end of the bargain pretty well there. There might have been a few of those bombs that have gone off or throughout the aggressive diet, but
I think just little stuff irritates me more. I think that's what I find. And it's normally something related to efficiency or time wasting or anything like that, because I just feel like I'm already up against it when I'm in a diet state. My brain's a little bit foggy, everything's running a bit more slowly. I like to have everything kind of laid out and everything in a certain routine, because that's what allows me to be efficient. And when you got content to write for the business, you got your check-ins, your client responses, you got stuff that you need to be doing on social media, you got all the day-to-day stuff going on in the house. I'm trying to get over the gym 5 days a week. I'm trying to get all my steps in. I'm tracking literally everything as meticulously as possible. Things have to flow quite efficiently to stay in that routine. And if there's things that kind of disrupt and upset that routine, I can find that more challenging in an aggressive diet. So it's learning to be adaptable, I guess, and trying to be a bit more adaptable with it. But it's not the big things that annoy me and irritate me. It's the little things which kind of build up. They probably build up a little bit more in an aggressive diet, because neither one of us are as on top of things as we are when we're outside of it.
I think you just summarised it very well, to be honest. You're a man of routine, like in the sense that you like to have a routine, you like it to run efficiently, that works for you, that keeps you in a good mental space. And that works for me living with you too. But when I am in an aggressive diet, that routine gets threatened and disrupted a little bit more, because I'm not quite as, shall we say, on the ball.
My eyebrows are raised here.
Then I'm on the ball with my absolute essentials, with, work, client delivery, the course that I'm doing, but perhaps the day-to-day functions of the house, for example, maybe chores, maybe just even cooking food, or prepping my snack, for example, eating my snack, cleaning up after my snack. Perhaps that full journey doesn't happen because I've moved on to my next task before I finished cleaning up the last one. And I think that happens more in an aggressive diet, because I'm like, oh, I'll do that later, or I haven't even thought about cleaning it up right there and then, because I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to go do that work task now.
I was wondering how much you were going to go into specifics, but seeing as you brought it up, it's like the little things, like when you make a snack, there's all remnants of everything you've used to make your snack just dotted about on different counters, on different work surfaces. And under normal circumstances, I'd probably just like pick them up and put them away. And then eventually I'd say like, right, Katie, come on, there's a yogurt spoon.
But under normal circumstances, a lot of that stuff too, I done, cleaned up and put back myself. Not all the time. I'm no angel. I'm not going to pretend I'm an angel, but I do the cleaning up element more often after I've been in the kitchen when I'm not in AD. When I'm in AD, it seems to slack off more, which disrupts Sean's flow, which then he has less tolerance to cope with, which is just, it's a disruption, shall we say. Is the politest way to put it?
That's all fair. It's fair critique. I think one of the things for me about being in AD with you, Katie, is that I notice your mood difference a lot more than perhaps where you would notice mine, because you're used to me being in routine. You're used to me having a bit of a structure to do things. You do rightfully put me in my place when sometimes I'm a little bit sharp or a little bit, shorter, and perhaps my patience is running a bit thin. But I think what I notice with you is that your personality changes considerably compared to how you normally are. Like, you normally have much more patience. Okay, not much with me, but a lot more in general. You normally have a much more kind of positive, upbeat attitude. And it's not that you're really negative in an AD, but you will moan a little bit more about stuff that normally it would just be water off a duck's back. Like, it wouldn't bother you at all. Like, I drop things in the kitchen all the time. All the time. I drop things, I knock things over, I spill things. I'm a real clumsy oaf at times. When you drop things, it's just like, oh, well, just tidy up. You just clean it up straight away. It's done and dusted. If I drop something, there's normally like a rant that follows. Why is that there? Why is there no room to put this down? Blah, 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 blah. There's plenty of room. There's nothing in the way. It's just me.
You're going to keep this podcast recorded to replay to you in the future.
Sometimes there is, but normally it's just me being a klutz. But if you drop something like an AD or you spill something up, it's like the world is coming to an end. And it's like, hang on a minute, what's happened here? So there is a big I notice it anyway. That's what I notice. I just noticed the difference. And whereas your fuse is normally very long anyway, it does get significantly shorter in the AD, whereas mine's always permanently short, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. There's lots of day-to-day things that generally just don't usually bother me in many different circumstances. But in AD, it's like, it's that extra thing I've got to think about that I don't really want to think about. So it's like a catastrophe has hit, and then you get it in the neck sometimes. So the question was, who's the grumpiest in an aggressive diet? That is a tough call.
I'm the grumpiest person, but I'm going to make a claim that you are the more grumpy one in an aggressive diet relative to how you are normally.
That's fair. I would say that's fair.
I think it affects your mood the most compared to normal. But if we're like talking absolute level of grumpiness, I'm probably the grumpiest. But that's because I already start a lot grumpier to begin with.
And I'm no longer that ray of sunshine in your life. I'm that dark, dingy flower causing mold to grow.
The flower that squirts water at you. It's like one of those joke flowers every time you go past and you're a little bit peed off. And instead of putting a smile on your face, it just squirts water on you. And it's like, oh, fricking that flower. And like the first couple of times it might be funny. And then after a while, it's like, that's really bloody annoying me now, that flower.
Oh, it's quite funny. Yeah. I think that answers that question quite well.
Yeah, let's move on because I think we've avoided divorce quite well there, really.
Yeah.
So question number 2. This is an excellent question. If you could give every SKD member one piece of advice that would genuinely transform their results over the next 12 months, what would it be?
That's a hefty question, but I love it. I love the idea behind this question and how thought-provoking it is, actually. But I'm going to swing it to you first.
No! So I've just written, like, with our podcast notes, I've written literally 3 words down on paper here. And I've got to expand upon those 3 words now. Trying to narrow this down to one piece of advice is very difficult. But the way my logical brain works with this, or what's left of it in this aggressive diet, is that over 12 months, there's going to be some actions which compound themselves. And they, done repeatedly over time, they add up to a huge result. So for me, I think what is the most meaningful action or the most meaningful behavior that's going to be the biggest point of difference in a 12-month period of time. And the 3 words I wrote down: train to failure. Now, just to explain, you don't need to be entirely literal with that. You don't need to train to failure on every single set, every single exercise for every single week. But at least all of the time, I would say, train as close to failure as you can manage and as you can recover from. I've seen far more progression in individuals' physiques through training harder and building muscle than anything they've ever done previously. I think that the amount of difference it makes to an individual's body composition by training harder and pushing close to failure and stimulating your muscles as much as possible in your training cannot be overstated enough. The vast majority of people think that the biggest impact on their physique will be losing body fat. And I agree to some extent, but over a 12-month period, I don't think losing body fat over a 12-month period is going to significantly transform your results. I think if you go absolutely hammer and tongs all in on a fat loss period for 3 to 4 months, sometimes longer, you can experience amazing body composition change. But if you don't do that alongside any sort of resistance training to build muscle in the first place, then your results are probably going to be lacking somewhat. If you have the idea of having a defined physique, of having muscular shape, of having, for females, it's more curvature on the body and sharp angles, potentially when you get leaner. It's often about having a little bit more size, and it's about having a little bit more mass to your frame. Even when you get leaner, you don't want to look skinny, you don't want to look scrawny, you want to look like you've actually got some real substance there. That comes from the resistance training. And what gets you the best possible results or response from your resistance training is training to failure. And it's something that I see far too many people shying away from. So for me, that's the one thing that I would be implementing if I want to see a genuine transformation over 12 months, not just for a short period, and that includes throughout the fat loss phase, because we've seen numerous members actually build muscle in their fat loss phases when they have started training with more intensity and pushing themselves harder and pushing themselves close to failure more often. So yeah, I think I've done that enough justice. I think I've sold that argument enough from my 3 words I wrote down on the page. But yeah, it's train to failure.
It was really, really interesting how we both answered this question because our minds went to different places, but both really important places, I think. And hearing you say about yours and training to failure, it's such a key part of physique development, transforming your physique. And it's one that I wish I took on 10 years ago, not just, 2, 3 years ago. It's what building muscle can do for your body shape it's just, there's nothing that compares. There's nothing that compares. Of course, like you mentioned, Sean, fat loss phases are important because they reveal that muscle that you've built, but you couldn't go on an endless fat loss phase for the rest of your life and see your physique transform. You'd actually become quite unwell and healthy, right? But building muscle and training close to failure is probably something you could do for the rest of your life and just keep getting more compounded returns from. So yeah, I love the angle that you took with that, but it was really interesting where our minds went.
And just to kind of close off that point, Katie, I fully agree with everything you said. Training close to failure is what you should be doing all the time, but training to failure gives you an indication of when you're close to failure and when you're not. Because a lot of people say they're training close to failure, but they're not. They're stopping when their muscle starts hurting or when things start burning or when the reps start to slow down. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're as close to failure as you think. Again, go to my social media, watch my training videos, watch me taking my sets to true failure, and do exactly the same for Katie because she'll have exactly the same videos. You watch those sets and you tell us whether you would stop where we stopped or would you have stopped earlier? Because I think most people, from what I see in their training, they stop earlier than this unless they've been instructed to go beyond what they think. I helped somebody in the gym yesterday. I shared a leg curl with a girl in the gym yesterday. This girl is strong as hell. I've seen her training a number of times. I'm pretty sure she plays rugby. She's really well built.
Oh, I think I know who you're on about,
like
actually. She's strong.
yeah, she's a strong girl, like athletic and strong. Shared the leg curl with her. She got to her 3rd set of leg curls and I went over and I bullied her basically into doing more reps, right? Because like I do with Katie sometimes, I spot where that person is getting a little bit uncomfortable and there's more in the tank. So
Ooh, that's mean.
yeah, we both had headphones on. I just went and stood by the side of it and I just like kind of give her a signal like I'm doing the thing with my finger, which you all can't see. But like to continue, right? Keep going, keep going. And then she kept going. I'm not joking. She got about another 5 or 6 reps and she would have stopped if I didn't tell her to keep going. I assisted the last rep that she did, that she took all the way to failure. I literally put a fingertip on the pad and just pushed it in the last couple of inches to finish her last curl. That's how little I assisted throughout those reps. So she would have stopped her set short, 5 or 6 reps short. This is somebody that's well trained. This is somebody that I can only imagine how destructive she is as a rugby player on the pitch. Like this is a good athlete. So it just goes to show, like we don't always know until we go all the way there what true failure feels like. And so I apologize to her for the state of her hamstrings the next couple of days. She actually said she's going on holiday as well. So good luck sitting on the flight. But yeah, and I've done that with a number of people, like where I've worked in with kit and I've shared some kit. And I've just encouraged people to go there because it's so empowering. You think it's going to be so bad. You think, no, I'm never going to be able to recover from this. It's going to be the worst thing ever. I'm going to hate it. But when you do it, it's like, oh my God, yeah, it's not as bad as I thought, but that's what true intensity and true fit training feels like. And then when I say train close to failure, you've always got that bar. That's the absolute limit that you can go to. You don't have to go there all the time, but you can get very, very close to it. Sorry for that side tangent, Katie.
No, I think it's an important side tangent. I think it's very easy to convince ourselves we're training hard because we're doing the reps that's on our program or lifting the weight that's on our program or the weight we think is hard for us. But our mind does play some tricks on us. It usually hurts, it usually burns, it usually feels uncomfortable before we're actually even anywhere close to failure. And look, you're already doing a lot of the work by being in the gym, being on the equipment, lifting the weights, doing the initial reps. Yeah, you get benefit from that. But if you really want to build some muscle, then learning where your failure really is such a helpful skill to learn.
I can go on about this all day, so I'm not going to. We're going to move on. But Katie, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to genuinely transform somebody's physique over the next 12 months?
Do the thing that makes you feel uncomfortable.
How appropriate.
That was it, right? And because my mind went, when I read this question, my mind went to 1,000 million different places about the advice that I would give someone to transform their physique. The reality is my advice for one person to the next person would be very different based on where they're at. But the one thing that's usually in someone's way is in the thing that they're avoiding. So whatever that thing is that you're avoiding that makes you feel uncomfortable, whether that is training close to failure, whether that is saying no in a social setting that you normally say yes to something, whether that's you actually admitting to yourself that you want to take your goals a little bit further, whether that's you saying no to foods in the house like chocolate, like crisps, like ice cream, whatever it may be, right? There's something in your journey that makes you feel uncomfortable or has perhaps been the hurdle that stopped you in the past. If you can keep pushing through those uncomfortable patches and keep doing that for 12 months, I promise you'll be in a completely different place.
I can agree more. That's just an amazing point. It's something that I fully endorse and I fully back. There's no growth without discomfort. It's as simple as that. There's no progression without discomfort. You have to make yourself uncomfortable to achieve any transformation. Doesn't matter what, we're not just talking about fitness here, we're talking about life in general, right? You have to embrace discomfort as part of progression and part of self-development. And I think there are times where you have to just ease a little bit of that discomfort because it can really add a lot of pressure to your life and it can make you feel a bit run down if you're exposing yourself to too much discomfort too quickly or for too long extended periods. And this is what we have to manage all the time with our clients. It's like, yeah, they want to lose a substantial amount of fat. If you go really hard to start off with, you're not going to be able to sustain really hard and fast for a very long period of time. You're going to need to take some breaks. You're going to need to pull back on this. Life throws curveballs at you. But we're fully understanding of all that stuff. We're not saying that you have to constantly push through extreme discomfort. We're not training you to be part of the SAS here, right? It's not an endurance test for how much pain and suffering you can inflict upon yourself. But you have to accept discomfort is part of the process. And sometimes you might pull back on it, recover a little bit, spend some time outside of discomfort. But the longer you spend outside of discomfort, the less time you're spending progressing and moving forwards.
Fully agree. It's not about throwing all of the different discomforts that you may feel at you at once. It's looking at the 12 months ahead of you and just tackling the next thing, one thing at a time. Not allowing yourself to sit in the same discomfort and same problem for too long, because that will never solve anything. It's about actually facing that problem or challenge head on, understanding why you were finding it a challenge so that you can then overcome it. And that can be hard to do on your own. And that's why sometimes having an outside perspective, someone that's not so emotionally tied to you in your mind as your individual, what's going on in your life, to give you that outside perspective and go, hang on, the problem that you are actually facing, you're likely making it 10 times, 20 times, 30 times worse in your head because you don't know another way to tackle this right now. So let someone else show you a different perspective. And that's where coaching can really come in handy. And that's where coaching steps up from, it's not a plan. It's not just a perfect workout program, because you can get that anywhere. It's the actions that you're currently doing that are keeping you stuck, that you don't even realize are keeping you stuck, but are keeping you there and they're holding you there.
Absolutely. It's the identification of it. And sometimes people do know what's keeping them stuck. We're intelligent human beings, right? Sometimes we do know what's keeping us stuck, but we don't want to accept it. We don't want to admit it. We try and avoid it. We try and find a way around it. We hope that if we leave it long enough and we do enough of the other stuff, that we can just forget about this one thing that's keeping us stuck. But the reality is, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't actually solve the problem. And if it's that much of a problem to be the first thing on your mind, if it's that much of a problem to be the first thing you think of when you think, right, why am I not doing better at this? Why am I not getting better results in the time that I'm putting into this? You know that that thing is the thing that's keeping you stuck. It's doing something about it. And that's what coaching does for you. Like, it's not about just having a diet plan, a training plan, because all of those just solve small problems, but it's getting into those training plans and diet plans and sticking to them consistently and executing them and adapting them when you encounter the other challenges that you face in life. For myself and Katie, 90% of the results that we get, big arbitrary number, but 90% of the results comes from behavior change. Yeah, we write excellent training programs. Yes, our attention to detail when it comes to nutrition is fantastic. Just bigging ourselves up a little bit here. But it's behavior change. It's emotional understanding. It's emotional intelligence. It's encouragement at the right times and pushing at the other times. That's what it's all about. That's what coaching does. And when you're feeling discomfort, sometimes you just need to be told, right, forget about all that other stuff right now because that's in order. You don't need to worry about this. You've already got that running on repeat. You don't need to stress about that. So stop putting all your time and energy mentally into thinking about that thing and just let it run its course. What you really need to focus on and what you really need to tackle right now is your weekend eating habits, your emotional regulation through food, is your inability to say no to drinking 16 pints on the weekend because you're too afraid to say to your friends, I don't want one more. The habits and the behaviors that are holding you back are the things which need the most time and attention, but you need to be supported to make those changes because you need to be shown another perspective from somebody else that helps other people just like you to know that it's not a bad thing to make this change. Can you think of any standout examples of things which you've helped people with that make them feel really uncomfortable, that hold them back from achieving the results they want? And when you change those, it makes a massive difference over like a 12-month period.
I think one of the biggest scenarios that clients feel uncomfortable with or people feel uncomfortable with is when they're in certain environments that don't quite align with the identity they want to become, the goals that they're trying to achieve. And it's for many different reasons. It could be that they naturally are more of a people pleaser. It could be that it's a cultural issue. It could be that it's something that their family and friends have done their whole life and them going, taking a different path and changing how they act in that environment makes them feel uncomfortable. And it really is uncomfortable when you first put yourself in that space, in that scenario, where you were acting different and making different decisions to perhaps what you would have done in the past in a similar environment. Because when you act differently and you make different decisions, it usually comes with questions from those closest to you, questions from those around you. Why are you doing it? Oh, go on, you've got to live a little. Or you don't want to be eating that little. It's not healthy for you. Or you look great as you are. Just live a little. All of these things are not easy to confront on your own when you're in an environment that is not aligned to where you are at with your current goals and health and fitness goals. And encouraging clients to be brave enough to speak up about what they want and why they want it, that often makes people feel uncomfortable. Once they've done it a couple of times and once they've gained confidence in the fact that actually the people around them generally are most of the time okay with it, but it's that initial conversation, initial change that really feels uncomfortable before the event, during the first event, until you come out the other side.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in what you're saying there. You know, when you say about like speaking up, I just want to address that element because I've spoken up about my goals and what matters to me and why I make decisions to not have so much to drink or choose a healthier option on a menu in a public setting. And I've been met with adversity about that at times, depending on who I'm with and depending on what environment I'm with. That makes me feel less like I want to speak up and speak for myself. And I don't know about other people, but I find that sometimes when I start getting challenged on something that I'm quite strong at and I'm quite firm at, then I kind of double down and I end up over explaining myself. And that then makes me get even more flustered and even more frustrated. And that makes the experience even more negative, to the point where I just feel like, eat the freaking dessert to keep everyone happy and stop them all having a go at me. And I don't really want it. I
Mm.
don't really want to have to face it. So sometimes I would argue that speaking up, you have to do that in the right context. And you might not be speaking up to the right people because they're not really going to understand. They don't have the same goals as you. They don't have the same priorities as you. Their body confidence might not be affecting them in the same way that it's affecting yours. And you might actually have very different methods of handling your discomfort with your body confidence, or not necessarily discomfort, but the vision that you want to achieve for yourself, your long-term goal and your long-term vision and the aspirations you have for your body transformation might be very different to what they have in mind. So even if you were to explain to them, they wouldn't really understand.
I think when I say speak up and explain the why, I don't mean necessarily to overly justify why you were choosing to do something, because ultimately that's your choice and like, you don't have to or need to explain that to everyone else. When I may say speak up and say why, it's more of yes or no, I want this, I don't want this. I'm working towards X goal right now. And that in itself should be enough. It might not be because you're working towards a goal right now. It might not be because you didn't have fat loss phase. It might be because you just don't want that choice because it's not healthy for you. But usually it comes with feeling uncomfortable when you first make those changes because they're so different to what your previous habits were like. And it's not that you need to over justify yourself in that moment. It's more that you've got to get comfortable with the fact that you are changing how you're acting. Usually that does come with some questions, or the people around you going, oh, that's different. Why is that different? So it's not that you need to over justify it, I guess. It's more be confident with the decision you made before going into that scenario.
I think what I'm taking away is you don't need to outwardly justify it, but you can internally justify it to yourself. And if your reasons for doing it are strong enough internally, then you don't really need to justify it externally. You just go along with what's right for you in that moment, and you can make up an excuse for the external part for explaining it to somebody else. Or, you just eventually you just become known as the person that doesn't do that thing, and people just stop putting pressure on you. I think what most people struggle with in those types of environments is a two-way thing. The people that you are with see something different to what they're doing and see how they're behaving, and they start to question their own behaviors and their own attitudes towards things. Like, I'll give a prime example. Alcohol is one of the biggest components of this, in my opinion, from what I've seen, from the environments that I've been with, from the people that I coach. Alcohol is one of the biggest social faux pas, let's say, where when an individual chooses not to drink in the company of people that drink, there's a very, very strong disconnect in a lot of social circles between the individuals that don't want to drink and the individuals that do want to drink. And neither one of them feels particularly comfortable around the other one. Until that barrier is broken down, until it's something that becomes more normalized, until it's something that perhaps is communicated and there's been a conversation about it. If somebody's not accepting over you, whatever your choices are, then in my opinion, you should just choose carefully how you spend your time with them, because there's always going to be friction there. That's not going to be a naturally flowing relationship with open channels of communication that end up in positive experiences and interactions. If there's always that elephant in the room that neither one of you can come to a compromise on, then it's going to create difficulty. And if you're constantly going out feeling stressed about having to explain your fitness goals to this person because they're just not going to understand you and they're not going to spend time with you, then perhaps you don't have as much in common. I'm not saying for you to just sack off all your friends immediately, but we're not forced as adults to hang around with and spend time with and be pressured into doing things and behaving in certain ways that we don't want to do. There's no written rules to who we have to spend our time with and who we have to hold friendships and relationships with. We get to choose. So if it's not serving you in a positive way and there's loads and loads of friction, there's loads of negativity, then maybe you just have to accept that this person's lifestyle is very different to mine. Their priorities are different to mine. Their understanding and their perspectives are different to mine. And perhaps they're not my best company in these types of environments. because they're encouraging habits and behaviors that I've spent so long trying to work away from, or spent so long trying to do the opposite to.
It's not always, that's not always easy to do, especially if family are involved, right? And that can be challenging because a lot of people most often not still want to be involved with their family or their closest friends, whatever it may be, but it can make it difficult. And I think the main point I was trying to make here is it does feel uncomfortable initially until it becomes the norm.
Yeah, I think there's an expectation that doing different is going to feel worse, isn't there?
Yes, because it does feel uncomfortable at the start, doesn't it? It does.
And what we do, for some reason, in those moments of discomfort is we forget the fact that it gets better, and that the first experience or the first exposure to what's uncomfortable is always going to be the worst one. It's like when you taste a food for the first time, you're so sensitive to the difference in taste, texture, smell, that it's like, oh God, I don't like it. And then you tell yourself that you'll never like that food. But with repeated exposure, it's not so bad. It's no different to training stress, repeated bout effect. If you continually expose your body to the same stimulus, the same exercise, the same intensity on a weekly basis, you don't get as sore when you keep exposing yourself to it. It's not as painful. But the first time you do a Romanian deadlift and take it close to failure, my God, you can't walk for about 5 days. You can't sit down on the toilet. It's horrendous.
And if you stop there and you didn't do an RDL again, then you'll never get the benefits from that, right?
Yeah. Most people will tell you to keep going because it gets better, but people don't, because they get that first exposure and it's the most uncomfortable part, and they stay in that uncomfortable part. So every time they go back to it, it's just as uncomfortable. I don't know about you, Katie, but what I have learned is that if I expose myself to a thing that's uncomfortable enough times in a social setting, it becomes far more comfortable for me to do the thing that I used to feel uncomfortable with.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Sean. It's the more exposure you get to the thing that's making you uncomfortable, but actually get a positive experience back rather than the story or uncomfortableness that you're making up in your head that may or may not even happen. But if every time you get uncomfortable, you go through that uncomfortable scenario, but you get that positive experience, that good feeling factor that you actually said no to the starter, main, and dessert, you said no to the 6 glasses of wine, whatever it may be, you feel proud of yourself, you feel confident about your decisions, you are happy how that situation panned out, so you want to then go back and experience that environment again. And every time you do it, you tend to get a bit more of a better experience. You feel more yourself, you feel more relaxed, you therefore enjoy that environment even more, rather than sitting in that dread of, oh, how's this event going to pan out now? Or am I going to end up having to overeat to please someone else, or to just say yes in the moment but then regret it after? Is it going to disrupt my goals? Am I going to feel like I've self-sabotaged when I don't want to? All of those negative thoughts that come with that environment are replaced with a positive experience that you feel happy and in control of. But you've got to go through that discomfort and rewrite those scenarios in your mind and in reality to be able to get a different experience with them.
How many times have you received a text from a client that says something like, I'm really proud of myself for not drinking X, or I'm really proud of myself for not choosing Y. I'm really proud of myself for not having the dessert, or for saying no to the bottle of wine that they drank around the table. Now, do we advocate for not having the things that you want and the pleasurable food or pleasurable drink in our community, Katie? Do we advocate for that?
Oh, absolutely not. We are very much behind the pleasure foods are a big part of your well-being.
So why do clients message us feeling proud of saying no to certain things which they're going to enjoy in the moment?
Because the results that they will achieve from saying no in a particular moment far outweigh the pleasure they'll get for that particular thing in that moment.
And how do they learn that?
Through repeated exposure to saying no in the moment and getting the results at a later time. by saying no to the bottle of wine in the moment, so that when they take their progress photos a couple of weeks later, they've dropped their body fat, their muscles are starting to pop, and they think, damn, that was bloody worth it.
All for that little bit of discomfort in the moment where the FOMO starts creeping in and they say no to that short-term pleasure because they achieve much greater long-term satisfaction and vision. It's not black and white, doesn't have to be all the time, don't have to say no on every occasion, but 9 times out of 10, people that are struggling to get in the shape that they want to, I keep using that statement today, that 9 times out of 10, I don't know what it is it 9 out of 10 days or something? Maybe it's because I'm at the end of an aggressive diet, so I'm just constantly thinking, what's as close as I can be to finishing? Anyway, the point is, the vast majority of the time, when individuals want to change their body composition, there are in the moment decisions that are preventing them from doing that. If you want to get leaner, if you want to get more muscle, if you want to stay lean all year round after you spent half your time losing the fat in the first place, if you don't just want to look like you've got a physical result for a very short term period and you want it to actually last, then lifestyle changes and lifestyle decisions do need to change. And that means saying no a little bit more frequently. And if you struggle to get there and struggle to stay there, then there's a very, very, very good chance that you're saying yes to things too often that are taking you away from that identity and that vision which you want to have.
And it's, if you're saying yes in the moment more often than not, you're just confirming to yourself in your mind that you're that person, not the person that you want to be.
Yeah, that you don't have discipline, that you don't have control, that you're only happy when you're eating these foods or drinking these things, even though you spend the vast majority of the rest of your week and the vast majority of the other hours in your day disappointed that you're not doing more, disappointed that you can't be more disciplined and that you're not being more consistent and you're not being more committed. In that moment, it feels great. Every other moment, it feels like you're letting yourself down by that one moment and by that one decision you made. There is a middle ground and there is a compromise to this. But as Katie has, I think, made the point quite clear on now, you have to embrace the initial discomfort to realize that you're in far more control of things than what you perhaps thought for a long period of time.
So, Sean Dallo, we've made it through 2 questions so far.
Excellent. We got time for one more. So let's drop in one more for this one. And we'll have to cover the other questions on the next one because we've had too much coffee and we've talked for too long.
And I think it's really important, the points that we've covered. And I believe listeners are going to take a lot away from it. And I also don't want it to lose its punch. So I agree with you. Let's cover one more question. And we'll keep the rest for next week. Final question I'm going to choose for this podcast is, are there any strict dietary rules that we never compromise on? I love this question. I think it's a great one.
Yeah, that is a great question. You kick us off, Katie.
Ooh, okay. So I'm going to talk from my perspective here, and I don't necessarily like the strict rules kind of analogy on this, but I do like the rules and having some guidelines to work with so that I, as an individual, can get what I want out of my diet whilst maintaining the body composition that I really want or progressing towards it, right?
That's a crucial statement. So I can get what I want out of my health and my body composition. Well put.
Because what I hope you'll take from this is creating your own rules for where you're at and what you want out of your diet, what you want out of your lifestyle, what you want out of your body composition. I'd highly encourage, and not to see rules as necessarily a bad thing, because rules, they're easier to work with and they can be bent sometimes when you need a little bit more flexibility, and they also can be tightened up on when you need them to be as well. So yeah, I like this question. So I'm going to roll with some of the things that I work with and I follow on I'd say a weekly basis, to be honest. So I zoom out and I look at my week as a whole, and there are some rules that align with that, and then I have some rules on a daily basis. The rules on a daily basis that I work with, that's having 3 meals a day. I don't budge on that. I don't change that. I have my breakfast, I have my lunch, and I have my evening meal. That's not to say that will work for absolutely everyone, and that's not to say that that's essential for everyone. But for me, I like to have my breakfast, lunch, and my evening meal. having those 3 meals a day and within a similar time frame every day, not absolutely spot on, but within a similar time frame every day, works really well for me because it allows me to get the nutrition I need in, but it also gives me routine and structure so that I don't end up feeling like I want to go and eat the kitchen cupboard because I'm starving. It means I'm eating regularly enough. My body knows when it's to expect its next meal. So there's just no unusual wacky thoughts, cravings. Yeah, I might get some cravings sometimes, right? But it's not on a daily basis because my body knows its routine, knows its structure, and it works well for it. So that's one of the rules I have, and I make that work in some capacity. Even if I'm out and about traveling, even if I'm on the road, whatever it may be, it's like, how can I make sure I've got food at that time, that day? When it comes to those meals, my non-negotiable is every meal has to have protein and every meal has to have fruit or veggies in that meal. That is my non-negotiable. Otherwise, I'm likely not going to feel full from that meal, or that meal isn't going to keep me very full for long after the meal. So to me, then that's not a very wise choice for me and actually makes sticking to a healthier diet harder if I don't have those in place. The other thing that feeds into the day-to-day rules is I only buy something to eat it. I don't leave it sitting around just in case. So by that, I mean, of course, that's not my day-to-day nutrition. That is the things like chocolate. It's just chocolate is my thing, right? Chocolate. But it might be, numerous different types of ice cream. It might be biscuits, cakes, whatever it is. But for me, I don't buy those things unless I'm going to have it. I'm going to enjoy it for what it is. If it's hanging around in the house, it's too much temptation. And it's just a temptation that I just don't want to deal with. So I don't have it there. And then the other 2 points, this is where I zoom out and look at the week overall. I set a rule of having as much variety with my fruit and veggies as possible. Not to overcomplicate things, but just to make sure I'm getting a wide variety of vitamins and minerals in my diet. I just like to think about having loads of different colours from the rainbow within my diet across the week. That aligns with having fruit or veggies with every meal. I just pick different ones. And last point, which works well for me, is I do have rules around pastries, cakes, and when I have something that's a little bit more calorie dense in one sitting, I'll only personally opt to only have that once or twice a week. After that, I just take it off the table. It's not even an option for me because otherwise, for me, it can lead to flexibility going too far the other way.
I don't have a lot to say really, Katie, because what you've described there is, in my opinion, a phenomenal example of how to have a really healthy, nourishing, balanced diet. And there's moderation, tools and practices built into that diet, which ensure you get a wide variety of nutrients, but also leave some room for pleasure and enjoyment. You've not once said that your diet is perfect, but I guarantee that your diet is built to be sustainable and it's built to last. And it's going to get really good outcomes. Well, it has done. It gets really good outcomes in terms of body composition. You only need to take a look at Katie's transformation and journey over the last couple of years to see that. Like, just hear how she talks about her diet. Hear the excitement she has talking about her diet and her relationship with food. Like, don't focus on the words per se of what she just said, because what she's described there is what's probably recommended by most coaches. Let's be honest. I want you to listen to that. And you know what? Pause it. Go back to start Katie's segment. Listen to it a second time, everyone, and listen to the tone of her voice and how she's describing this. And bear in mind, she's on her last day of aggressive diet. So she's already missing her food and missing her pleasure food a little bit. Like, listen to the positivity in her voice. Listen to the passion she's talking with. I don't think people realize how good it feels when you've got your diet locked down, under control, with rules that you've set for yourself and you've put in place. You know what works for you. You can just tell how much Katie enjoys her relationship with food nowadays and how beneficial it is to her by the way she talks about it. So I'll share my rules with you, but they're going to be quite underwhelming compared to that, Katie. But thank you so much for sharing that. And I really think that I cannot impress enough about how important it is to try and find that place similar to where Katie is at with your relationship with food, because it's completely life-changing.
Oh, that was very nice. And I
Oh.
got a big smile on my face listening to that.
All right, well, here goes. I never go more than one meal in a row without some fruit or vegetables. And like Katie says, she has it with every single meal. There may be the odd meal where I don't have fruit or vegetable. And I can tell you the exact meal or the exact 2 meals where that might be the case. It's my pre-training snack occasionally might not have a fruit or vegetable. 9 times out of 10 it does. But occasionally I won't have a fruit or vegetable with it. And before I go to bed, I might have a fruit and vegetable. Why? Because there's more fiber in it and I don't want it to be heavy on me. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. I eat about 5 or 6 meals a day. I could probably count maybe 1, maybe 2 meals at most that don't have a fruit or vegetable. And they're selectively chosen because I don't want anything to be hard to digest when I'm either about to go to the gym and train or go to bed. It's just that simple. And if the fruit's a little bit more easy to digest, like for example a banana, then I will eat that before training. I won't eat banana before I go to bed because it's probably going to disrupt my sleep a little bit. So yeah, that's my rule. And normally with meals, most meals don't just have one fruit or vegetable with them, they have more than one. But I never go 2 meals in a row without having one because I want to get all those nutrients in my diet. I care about having the high amounts of fiber. That's what works for me. My second point, my meals always have a good protein source. I don't rely on just protein yogurts or just protein powder. You could argue and make a case for protein powder being a good protein source, but eating actual dietary sources of protein rather than supplementing with protein does give you other nutrients to your diet, and it does help you to feel fuller for longer. And it does help to slow the digestion of your meals a little bit as well, especially helpful in periods where you're trying to focus on things like fat loss and you want to be as full as possible for as long as possible. But yeah, my meals always contain a really good source of protein, similar to Katie. The consequence of me not having a good source of protein with my meals in terms of hunger isn't worth having. But if we're going to break into the nitty-gritty science of stuff, we want to try and make sure you got enough of the branched chain amino acid leucine when you have protein. Now, this is me getting a little bit nerdy on you, right?
Because he's such a logical, practical guy that he just can't resist just nerding out on it when he's giving you the rules. Oh, keep going, Chuck, keep going.
Look, essentially, I'm trying to maximize muscle protein synthesis as much as I can throughout the day. This is just me. This is how I work. This is how I operate. If I've got really good quality sources of protein with each meal, each day, then I'm giving my body the best chance. I'm taking that extra little 0.5 to 1% benefit of having protein of a really good quality on a more regular basis and putting that towards my muscle growth because I want to build as much muscle as possible whilst I'm still building muscle. So yeah, that's why I focus on that. And I'm religious with my protein intake. Third point, another one that's specific to building muscle and strength and performance. I never go to the gym hungry. Just a flat rule. I will never, ever go to a session feeling hungry. If I have to shift some calories from another meal, if I have to take a tiny bit off my evening meal, if I have to take a tiny bit off my lunch or a tiny bit off my breakfast to allow me to have a really small meal before I go to the gym, then I do so. For me, being focused on my gym session, not being distracted by hunger, not feeling like halfway through I'm thinking about what I'm going to do on my next meal is so important. When I'm in the gym, I'm there to work, I'm there to train, I'm there to get the best possible results that I can from that training. It's high intensity, it's high effort, it's high degree of focus. I'm not letting hunger distract that. So for me, I don't go to gym hungry. It's normally something light, it's normally something that's easily digestible. It's just enough to keep me from feeling hungry to the point where, like, even if I'm not too far away from a meal that I've had, I will just have something small. Like it might just be like a rice cake with a bit of jam on it or something like that. Just enough so that I'm taking the edge off that hunger that may occur in the session. And that's worked so well for me for a long time. And I never change it. It's just my routine. The final rule that I would say I've created for myself is that I rarely waste calories on liquids, especially in a fat loss state. I can list all the drinks that I have when I'm in fat loss. I limit myself to 2 cans of fizzy pop a day. And we have a choice between Pepsi Max in this house, and we have sugar-free Tango. The sugar-free Tango is about 13 calories a can, right? So it's not much. But I have one of those because it's 13 calories, and the Pepsi's 1 calorie a can. So I don't even allow myself to have 2 cans of Tango, and I track those cans of Tango for those interested as well. I have black coffee, I have water. If I have a squash, I don't have one of the cans of Pepsi. No fruit juice. I change my milk to almond milk to lower the calories in that. I don't put milk in any teas. I sometimes have peppermint tea. There's just no, I don't drink alcohol when I'm in a fat loss phase. There's no calories wasted because I'm just trying to maximize fullness and maximize on my edible food. And then outside of fat loss, I just really limit my liquid calorie intake. Again, for the same reasons, fullness, nutritional value. There are occasions where I will have an alcoholic beverage, for example. It's always tracked, it's always accounted for. There's occasions where I might have a drink that's a bit more sugary, or I might have something like a flat white in a coffee shop, but they're not a frequent occurrence. I don't involve those in my diet on a day-to-day basis. They're selective, they're chosen carefully. I'm going into my refeed now on this weekend coming up. I'm going into my refeed. For those of you listening to this, it would have been the previous weekend. I'll be having some fruit juice to help to get my carbohydrate intake up. I only ever drink fruit juice on holiday or in a refeed. Limit the liquid calories. And I think this is a really low hanging fruit for a lot of people that want to try and lose fat and cut down as well. Just try and limit the amount of liquid calories you have going in. They're not satiating, they're not filling. You're probably better off using those for pleasure and enjoyment outside of your fat loss phase or on a diet break. A lot more logical than yours, Katie.
Yeah, which I expected, right? I expected it to be more like that. I think every time we answer any kind of question with anything in life, yours is always more logical and practical, and mine's always more emotional. Always, I think. And perhaps the combo of the both, that's why it works really well for us. Because sometimes I benefit from having your practical outlook on nutrition. I really do. Because it helps. It just simplifies things. And then I'm going to say as well, I think there's times where you'll benefit from my more flexible approach, shall we say. Worrying again too caught up on the minutiae details all of the time.
I think it's probably important to note that, like, for me, I'm a bit of a weird scenario where I've probably got higher maintenance calories than most people. It doesn't upset my diet or my hunger levels too much when I decide to have a pastry, or I decide to have a cake, or I decide to have some slightly less nutritious food at some point in the week, because I could probably manage that with all the food that I eat elsewhere. And when you hear about how I construct my diet with fruit and veg pretty much every single meal, protein, large protein source, and high quality protein every single meal, eating to maximize fullness, not drinking calories so I can eat more food and maximize fullness, you realize that it doesn't actually have that much of an impact on me if I occasionally have a treat, or occasionally have something that's less nutritious. But I could probably get away with that a little bit more than most. So it's not something I particularly emphasize, and it's not something that I particularly talk about that much, because I don't think many people are as fortunate to me to be able to maintain body weight on 3,500 calories a day.
Yeah, for sure. And not unless you're an athlete or playing sport or have a really, really active job, but it's not most people, right? So I agree. I think how you look at your nutrition is different to how I would look at nutrition.
I don't have the emotional challenge of thinking, oh, I can't fit that in. Like, how do I balance that? Because it's a lot easier for me to balance those decisions if I chuck a 500 calorie croissant in from the local bakery that's smothered in chocolate. It's like, oh, that's 500 calories. I'll be fine. I still got another 5 meals.
Yeah, it is. It is on that element that it does make that easier for you, right?
But I still manage the diet logistically as somebody who would really have to track those calories and manage those calories anyway.
There definitely going to be people listening to this that will take some things from your rules and probably some things from mine. And I hope create their own rules and see how the rules you make around your nutrition can really serve you in a positive way when you align them to what you really want and how you also need to structure your day around whatever lifestyle responsibilities you've got going on.
One final note on that. The habits that I've created with my nutrition and the rules that I've created for myself with nutrition, I'm sure I speak on your behalf here as well, Katie, but I have created this routine and structure with food with longevity very much in mind. So we had a joke about the protein intake and maxing out on muscle protein synthesis now. But as you get older, when you start to get closer to the age of 60, you will find that your body's less efficient with the protein that you're putting into it. There is a bit more resistance to how well you can build muscle and even retain muscle if you're not giving the right sort of nutrients to your body in terms of the protein intake and you're not doing the resistance training to support that. One of the habits which is really important, really beneficial to people as they age, rather than just focusing on total protein intake per day, is focusing on the quality of the protein that you get in each feeding and how much you get in with each feeding, right? Like, I'm building myself up for that. I've created this habit. I've done this for 10 years or so already, right? But starting from my 20s, I'm building this habit up, and it's going to be hopefully as natural for me in my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s to focus on getting protein with each meal, to focus on fruit and vegetables with each meal. I'm sure everyone will listen to this and know that they've got food habits which they've adopted from when they were children. Some of them will actually be quite negative and they might need to be improved and changed as time goes on. But I'm sure you'll all be able to relate to the fact that your food habits do stick and your routines with foods do stick, whether you want them to or not at times. So the more time you can spend adopting positive habits and healthy habits for not just the short term, but the long term, the better off you're going to be. And my diet allows me to easily transition back to fat loss and between fat loss and muscle building states because of the structure and the routine is quite simple to follow. So yeah, I'm always thinking of longevity in mind and the things that I'd like to have as habits and maintain as habits throughout the rest of my life, and the things that I'd like to have an influence on others with as well. If my kids see me eating, that's how I'd like them to be able to eat, with fruit and vegetables in mind and protein in mind. A bit like yourself, Katie. So yeah, just thought I'd mention that.
I think it is important to note because it's not a short-term fix, is it? Sorting out your diet and looking after your nutrition. It's something that needs attention for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean it has to be complicated. Nutrition can be quite simple when you break it down, and the habits that you create should align with what works for you now and hopefully in the future. So no, I think it is a very, very important point to bring to the table. And I don't imagine my diet changing an awful lot now either throughout the rest of my life. It works now, and with the knowledge that we've got, we know it works when we're older as well. So I think that sustainability element that you mentioned there, Son, is really important because yes, when you're, trying to lose body fat, you're going to be a bit more restricted, and that diet shouldn't necessarily be sustainable if you're going a little bit more aggressive in the short term. But there are habits that are within that are sustainable for the rest of your life. Like perhaps your meal time and your meal structure, whatever it may be, that you can sustain. So figuring it out and spending some time now in the here and now to figure out what works for you, it's just going to serve you for the rest of your life. It has the potential to serve you for the rest of your life for short-term effort and focus now in the here and now. Or you can struggle along with it forever. So, I'm glad you raised that point. So we're going to wrap it up with those 3 questions today. There are some really interesting questions actually for the podcast next week that I'm looking forward to answering. And to give you a little bit of a sneak preview, some of the questions are around supplements, sacrifices that members don't see or hear that we make behind the scenes, new plans and ideas for SKD coaching, and how we balance our routines with building a business, being husband and wife, and still achieve the goals that we set out to achieve.
I need to get my thinking cap on, I think.
So yeah, I think they're going to be some really interesting, juicy topics that I'm looking forward to covering. So thank you very much to the listeners that have given us these questions, and we really want to give them all the time and attention they deserve. So part 2 will be coming.
And look, if any of you think of any questions whilst you've been listening to this, then send them over to us. Pop them through to our Instagram pages or pop them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave it a like and we'll know that we can do these again in the future. If you enjoy these Q&A style episodes. But yeah, we can only do these with questions submitted. So pop them through to us and we'll put them towards the list for the next few Q&A episodes as well. But that's all for now. Thank you all for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.